Another technique that you need to be familiar with is a braked turn. A brake turn allows you to change heading and turn while losing the least amount of altitude possible. This is great for when you suddenly encounter another jumper or an obstacle in the landing area that you hadn't seen before. And this is also a good way to recover if you recognize that you are in a low turn. The idea is that you're going to slow the canopy down with a brake position with your toggles, and then you're going to let up on one side or the other to initiate the turn. When you raise that toggle slightly, you're not going to go up to a full flare. You're only going to come up about 1/4 distance, maybe 6 inches to a foot from full flare. You will turn in the opposite direction of the toggle that you let up on. The first thing you're going to do is bring your toggles down into a brake position to slow your forward speed. You want to get your toggles into the position that give you the slowest forward speed without stalling or collapsing the canopy. Most student canopies are designed so that you can be in about 3/4 brakes without stalling the canopy. And even a lot of student rigs won't do a full stall at full toggle flare. You will want to practice this at higher altitudes before doing the landing pattern in a brake position. Your goal with the brake turns is to try and turn quickly while losing as little altitude as possible. Using your toggles or your rear risers, you can change the glide ratio of your canopy. The glide ratio is the distance you traveled forward across the ground compared to the altitude you lost. For example, if you travel 2 foot forward for each altitude lost, your glide ratio is 2:1. On low glide design canopies, the minimum descent may be near half brake position. For high glide designs, the minimum descent may be near the 3/4 brake position just prior to the full stall. So be sure to practice this up high to be comfortable with the brake position that you need for the minimum descent. Some canopies achieve the minimum descent using the rear risers instead of toggles. Now we're going to talk about changing your glide path. Before we can talk about how to change your glide path, we have to determine what the glide path is for your canopy. As you're flying through the air, if you look straight down between your feet, it's going to look like the ground is moving past you or moving behind you. On the other hand, if you look straight out at the horizon will appear to move upward. At some point between the ground beneath your feet and the horizon, there is a center point that will not appear to be moving up or down, and this is the point that you are aimed at with your canopy. As we watch this clip, the blue arrows are moving down outside of you, and the red arrows are moving up. In the center, there is the purple line that doesn't appear to move within the frame. If you continue on this glide path, that center area is where you'll touch down on the ground. Now that you can find your glide path and point on the ground that you're going to land at, you can use your toggles and rear risers to see what effect they have on this landing point. Once you figure out how much toggle input to use to get the best glide, you'll be able to see that the landing point extends out farther, maybe up to about the blue line. There are also techniques if you want to go to deep brakes and hold it, you can actually shorten your glide path and land earlier than the pink line. Make sure and practice these techniques up at higher altitudes. These techniques are more used when you're trying to make it farther back to the landing area or you have to land earlier than expected. For now, you'll do a normal downwind base and final, but eventually you'll be able to use these techniques a little bit more for landing. It does take several jumps to get to where you can identify the glide path and landing point on the ground. After that, it'll take several more jumps to figure out what gives you the best glide as far as how much toggle input, or maybe rear risers give you the best glide. You'll have to do some practicing up high to see which position gives you the best glide. Once you've practiced flying in a half brake position, it's good to do a landing pattern in at least half brakes. This will give you a better idea of what impact it has to go into a brake position to see how different the landing pattern is. On the final approach though, you'll want to go up to quarter brakes so that you have enough flare for landing. Because you'll be flaring from a quarter brakes, you won't get quite as much lift on the landing, so be ready for a PLF. You may even have to flare a little bit quicker than normal. Smaller canopies may descend too quickly in deep brakes or half brakes for a safe braked approach landing. You'll have to get to know your canopy practicing up high to understand what your canopy can do for landing.